Like I said, Mr. Senior Molotov. There's this guy that would run around, and he had a bunch of people, and they would Molotov people. Just the Molotov cocktail, and he liked to use flamethrowers. Like I say, he like what he would do is he would go into a house, and he'd have his flamer, and he'd have his flame squad outside, and he'd be like, "I am now going to have sex with you. Give yourself to me, or else I will burn you." Anyway, and basically the women would give themselves to them, basically, and whatever, and the mother, daughter, and they would give them a good time, or whatever. They'd go, oh, and have sex, with his flamer by his side, and his flame boys would be waiting outside. And basically, he'd have his way with all the women of the house. And then he would leave, and then, believe it or not, later on, he'd come back anyway, and then he would flame them. Or he'd demand money or food or whatever. And he just had a flamethrower. And they called him Mr. Molotov, because he would, him and his gang members would run around, and they would throw Molotov cocktails at houses. Anyway, he was a criminal and a pyromaniac, and basically a druggie, and pretty much a rapist and a piece of shit, pretty much. Anyway, they had manufactured, done all this stuff, and basically done all this media fake stuff. And like I said, pretty much the everyone had gotten sick of these people, pretty much, and they were hiding out in this house, and they were hiding around, and they were basically just, rapists and killers, basically. And pretty much like the main group, they were just, it was a bunch of really bad stuff between 1910 and 1960 or 1970. And basically they were pretending like they worked for the leader or some leader or something, and it was just a bunch of black people and a bunch of white people, and a bunch of people just that did whatever they wanted. They would go and they would firebomb houses. They would go and rape women. They would go and do whatever they wanted, and they would do as many drugs as they wanted. And like I say, I forget, there were like 5 or 6 instances where basically and they were cooking up their own drugs. They thought they were like chemists or something like that, and they were experimenting with drugs, and they would give their drugs to some people or whatever else like that or something like that. And anyway, though, and they really weren't scientists or anything else like that. They really didn't have that much intelligence between them, and they were basically just people that were willing to kill or shoot anyone in the back or do whatever they wanted, And basically they were supporting people who wanted to do whatever they wanted, They would go and support, if you were a psycho freak that liked to kill and have sex and do drugs, they would give you money and support you. And basically, they moved from country to country to country to country to country, and basically, they'd go around pretending like they were something like immortals, or they were, a different life for every country. And anyway, though, and then they would post these videos like the mystery of Stalin's death. It's Star's death, actually. The mystery of Star's death. I didn't die. Well, I did die. I mean, I was nuked, and then I was poisoned, and then I died from a disease for which I didn't have any immunity, but I'm back. I'm much better now as Brian, and so I'm Star. I'm Lusifer Star. Anyway, and technically I've been around, kind of, but there are a lot of people that are pretending to work for me, or pretending to be this, or pretending to do that, and it was basically pretty much where all the money was going from the Skunk Works and the Lockheed. And basically they're just these people that were psycho crazy, and then they pay these other people to go and try and make their legacy like they were something, and they were really just horrible people. I mean, there's real police records and real video and real evidence that basically those people were psychotic, and they were living in my house. That house was a government house, and they eventually just moved over there and took it over. And there's probably a deep bunker or something like that, and they were calling shots out of there, basically like Bloods and Crips or whatever. I don't really know. Just psycho freaks. There's all these psycho freaks out there all living inside these bunkers. Anyway, leaders from Africa and all that other stuff just running from basically everyone, because pretty much everyone, I mean, you shoot up one town, you shoot up 10 towns. I mean, you shoot first, and they got pretty far. They got really far just by shooting first. I mean, it took a while for the world to really realize about these people, and then later on the world knew about these people and knew who they were, and they'd all seen them, and they all knew what was going on. Like the whole world they'd killed so many people and bombed so many cities that everyone, they were going to be found. So there was no real use in running. So, but they were still running and they were still trying to hide. And eventually they took some bad drugs or something else like that. It was like 1960s, JFK, Nixon, the Maltese Falcon, melting down all the bells, Republicans, fake aristocrats, just a bunch of people pretending, that they'd go out into the world all dressed all nice and pretend to be businessmen, pretend to be this and that. And then they would run back to these houses, and basically they were just people with guns. They just ran around from house to house to house to house to house to house. They would change out houses and just basically, hit up a new house, and just and they kept moving actually. For the most part, every 3 or 6 months they would move, because, they would do as much damage as they could in that town and they'd move to another town. And basically use overwhelming force or whatever. There were quite a few groups going around basically being pieces of shit, trying to live on stars money. Lusifer White Star. Except they spelled my name wrong with a C. And they didn't really know who I was. Pretending to be me or pretending to work for me or something like that, and they weren't. They had nothing to do with the creator, me. And they were very much trying to kill me or trying to find me. And that's one of the reasons why they moved from town to town to town to town to town looking for me. But I wasn't at any of those towns. So, in the whole world, and there's only one me. Where am I? And they were spending my money and knew that. But I don't think they really knew who or how bad it would get. I don't think they knew whose account they had been dipping into. They had been dipping into Lusifer Star's account, living at my hotels, using my trains, flying my aircraft. Anyway, they would find out exactly who Lusifer Star was, eventually. Me, creator of 12 races. Like I said, you see an account or a name on a plate, and you might think something. You might think about trying to be or trying to pretend that you're that famous person. But there's a big difference between trying to pretend that you're Gilbert Godfrey and or some famous comedian or trying to pretend that you're Celine Dion and then trying to pretend that you're Lucifer Star. That is one name that for which a lot of people would be tortured over because they weren't me. Anyway, and the funny thing is, they were pretending to be me while trying to seek out other Lucifer Stars and kill them. No, the thing is, they knew that they were lying about being me. So they thought if they saw anybody else named Lucifer Star, then that would be the real Lucifer Star and they would kill them. Not knowing that it was just another person trying to pretend to be me. So they were just killing each other. Even chasing their tail. Later on, they would say, he has us chasing our tail. It's like, no, actually, you're chasing your tail because you're finding out. Because they'd go around saying, yeah, we're Lucifer Star. And then they would go and rape and have a lot of sex and do a lot of bad things. And then they would move to the next town. And then they would get a report that Lucifer Star was in a town. And then they would go back to the town they were just in, looking for me. Anyway, they were chasing their own tail. They're like, he has us chasing our own tail. It's like, no, actually, your stupidity is chasing your own tail. Anyway, it was almost comical in the end, really, because because other people realized who these people were and who they were trying to pretend to be. So anyway, whatever.